Hello, I'm Eric Snodgrass, and thank you for watching today's Midday Western U.S. Regional Forecast video brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solution. Well, we can see here in this animation that over the last 24 hours, a couple of large storm systems have taken shape here in the north part of the Pacific Ocean. This is an infrared satellite animation. System number 1 moving right here into parts of British Columbia in the northwest later on today, and then the second system sitting right here basically over the Aleutian Islands. We see that the trajectory of these systems is coming over like this. And honestly, that's one of the problems we've seen for parts of California. There has been some light rain that has moved through, as you can see here at the beginning of this animation. But overall, this is the wrong configuration in terms of the flow of the atmosphere to really be bringing in the big-time precip events to California, something I'm going to talk a lot about at the end of this video. So what are we going to anticipate here? Well, the system's still running right over the large area of higher pressure sitting here, and therefore the attack mode of these systems will be northwest to southeast. We can see it best by taking a look at our jet stream winds later on today. Here's the first trough that's sweeping through, bringing in some very windy conditions and also some big time snow here for the Cascade and for the Northern Rockies. And then system number 2, you can see its main trough axis hanging out back here, but like you see, it's going to come right over the same ridge and down here into the Pacific Northwest as well. Overall, the flow is still split out west, but we will be talking in this video about a change in that flow pattern, and it'll be an important one for us to see how the precipitation and temperature patterns transition in the near term. So talking about precipitation, this is what we're looking at when we just look at liquid equivalent, getting us out through Monday evening. So just over the next 4 days here, we're anticipating quite a bit of precip, again, the main trajectory from this direction. So who's missing out on this? Well, a lot of the southern 2/3 of the state of California is going to be on the drier side of things with the pattern that is setting up. But we will be adding in an enormous amount of snow to the Cascade Mountains in the Northern Rockies, including the Blue Mountains here, all mountain ranges which desperately need it. We're still doing okay in parts of the Sierra Nevada, but we do need to keep packing in that snow this time of year in order for us to hit our targets for the end of the season. So let's now take that. We looked at the first 4 days. Let's now go for the 4 days that follow that. The 7 days that follow that. So this Monday through next Sunday. We do see a bit of a transition, and you notice that California, especially the Sierra Nevada, getting down almost through the San Joaquin Valley here, is expecting to see above average precipitation amounts. So very active 7 days that follow this, which means getting you through the next 10 days, things are looking wet. But I do want you to notice one thing. If I just show you this upcoming Friday, so the 17th through the 24th, the models have actually gone back over toward a drier pattern, especially for California. And we need to be discussing why that is and talk about if the models do have a robust solution for this. So I'm going to get to that in just a few moments. Okay, here's a big piece of all of this. One factor we watch carefully, honestly, all year long, is something called the PNA. You hear me talk about it, but what is it? It's the Pacific North American pattern. Now, right now, we see that in the near term, we are expecting the Pacific North American pattern to stay negative before making a rise back toward near average, maybe around the 18th or 19th. So when the Pacific North American pattern is negative, look at the bottom graphic over here on the left. We tend to have high pressure cells sitting here, and the flow tends to go around it. So we're seeing that right now. We tend to be cool and wet. The systems come in from the north and west. When the Pacific North American pattern goes over into its positive phase, that ridge moves toward the coast, shoving the systems around it, and then they dive here into the eastern half of the country. So it ends up setting up the middle part of the country as cold, and the west tends to become more blocked. And when it's blocked, it tends to be warmer and also tends to be drier. Now, our Pacific North American pattern is not necessarily going over to the positive phase, but it is returning back over to what we would call neutral territory, which means I need to be watching for the shift in the high pressure cell that is to the west of North America. And we're going to talk about that, so take a look. Now, of course, over the last 48 hours, we did get some precip that snuck here through parts of Northern California. We need more in that area, though, because when you look back over the last 2 weeks, this has been an area that's shown up very dry, as has our rain shadow. And that's simply because the flow at times has been really coming onshore directly out of the west with a little bit of a northwest appeal to it here, rather than when we get the big precip events here in the rain shadow when stuff comes in like this. In other words, this has been a year where we've resisted having the strong, what we call Pineapple Express setup, which hammers parts of interior Oregon, Washington, and of course, California. Okay, so what do we have in the near term? Well, with the system still coming out of the north and west, we have a large area of the northwest still encompassed here in winter storm warnings. This is, of course, elevation dependent. We can see that the western side of the Snake River Valley, not nearly as snowy as the eastern side is going to be here in the near term. But California, we're relatively void of the hazardous weather. But let's take a look at what we're looking at in terms of snowfall here just through Monday evening. Snow amounts getting up into the Cascade Mountains could easily top 3 feet as you get higher elevation, but most of our models are predicting the snow line to be somewhere around the 2,000 foot level. It will change with the low level temperature profile throughout the day today and into early tomorrow, but packing up quite a bit of snow there in the Cascade where we do need this. I can't wait to show you on Monday and Tuesday what those snow values then look like. Coming over here into the Blue Mountains and getting into the Northern Rockies, we do see widespread potential for 10 to 20 inches of snow there, which we're going to need as well. But notice California's mountain ranges, especially the Sierra Nevada here, not picking up much in the near term. But as you saw, that is going to change with time. Now, one of my major concerns with the systems coming in this weekend, this is looking, again, through Monday. We've kind of looking at accumulated maximum wind gusts, so the fastest we're going to see some of these winds. Now, offshore, they're getting quite ferocious, but do notice in coastal Oregon, Washington, Northern California, getting over to the Snake River Valley here, we do have the potential for seeing some gusts at times over the next couple of days, topping 40 miles an hour. So just be prepared for that. Very windy conditions here in the near term. Okay, let's run our high resolution model out to see the timing of the next couple of systems coming through. Let's pause it right here. This is through midday today. So we noticed that early this morning through midday today, it's mostly a coastal Oregon, northern coastal Oregon and Washington event, with the lighter snow moving in through this region, maybe getting over towards Spokane at this time by the time we get into midday today. Now through the afternoon hours, that comes our next big push at the heavier precip. So the first major band coming in here into parts of coastal Oregon and Washington, working its way over the rain shadow and then eventually into the Rockies and Blue Mountains. Now this is out 9 o'clock this evening. As we get into the overnight hours and early morning hours, some of that snow moves into the Snake River Valley, and the next big push comes into coastal Oregon and Washington. A bit more scattered on this precip here as we work our way into 5 a.m. on Saturday morning. As we progress through the day on Saturday, getting into Saturday afternoon, system number 1, the first one, is going to be finally moving on out, and we're going to be watching the second one here to see it showing up Saturday evening, coastal Oregon and Washington. And what a beautiful display early Sunday morning of our rain shadow effect when the flow comes right in just like this. So you can see it jumping right in through here and picking back up as the elevation does in this area. You notice, though, not a whole lot going on in California. When does stuff finally spread into California? Well, to see that, let's switch over to our European model, which will run out 10 days. Let's pause it here. So this gets us through Saturday night, working our way into Sunday morning. So that was our next big push coming in Sunday morning. Now, the good news is the high pressure cell is pretty far off to the west. So if we watch Sunday afternoon and evening, this low pressure system that comes in here by the time we get into Monday morning has slid down, and we could be getting some light snow here at the higher elevations in parts of Northern California. But watch this, Monday morning into Monday afternoon, our next low of consequence here starts to show up. And notice it's here and not hitting British Columbia first. Now watch what that means. This is Monday afternoon, Monday evening, Tuesday morning. That system, if I go again from Monday morning through Tuesday morning, it's the one that comes in and hits Northern California and then slides through the Sacramento Valley and then eventually brings some snow into the Sierra Nevada and down through the rest of the Central Valley. So what's helping this along is the fact that our high pressure cell is out here and it's really elongating into the Gulf of Alaska. That's good. So Tuesday afternoon, let's keep this going. Next big low comes in here by Tuesday evening. This is now Wednesday morning, Wednesday afternoon, and evening. So you can see that it is, again, beyond the next 3 to 4 days where things start to get a bit more active for California. So let's watch this one. This is now Wednesday evening, Thursday morning. That one looks to really push down into much of California, increasing those precipitation amounts out about a week from now. Well, about 6 days from now. So we've got a lot to be watching here in the Pacific Northwest. And then toward next week, from Monday through next Thursday, California gets in on a lot of this action. So as that system comes through, I do want you to notice one thing. The operational models, as I get you out here to, now this is pretty far out, but Saturday the 18th and to Sunday the 19th, are signaling some sort of change. And what I mean by that is, can you see how instead of having systems coming down like this, we now start to see systems that are really maybe cranking up in this direction. I'm trying to understand if we are getting a pattern change in the Pacific that would be substantial enough to maybe, I don't know, pull in some of that more tropical moisture. Let's try to answer that question, okay? Now, certainly over the next 10 days, I'm expecting to work on the drought that is here in the Pacific Northwest. Now, this was just released yesterday on the 9th. When we get a new update next Thursday, I'm hoping to see that we've made a substantial dent in some of the drought in this area, which we desperately need to do here. But before I give you that long-term pattern change update, I at least want to show you temperatures, okay? Through the next 5 days, the coldest air is tucked away here in British Columbia and Alberta. We are cooler than average here across much of the west. There's a lot of cloud cover and precipitation from those systems coming in just like this. That hangs on in the 5 to 10 day time period, although Montana really gets hit pretty hard, as does northern Idaho and Washington State, with some much below average temperatures here as we stretch this out. Now, looking out into the 11 to 15 day time period, this is where things start to get a little bit tricky. You see, the GFS and the European want to keep the coldest axis of air in through here. But what's going on in the west is going to be a little bit more challenging to figure out. I want to show you why I'm concerned about this time period. So what are we talking about again here? The 20th through the 25th. Okay, right now, this is our setup. And look at this. Ridge over the Aleutian Islands, trough west, ridge over the east, trough south of Greenland. That's our current pattern. Systems are coming over this ridge and in from the northwest. So that is the trajectory we've been talking about. Look at how things change. Well, first the wind speeds. So fast coming off of the Pacific, split here, coming together and running in that direction. So I've detailed that story. But look at now at how things are forecast to change once I get you out to about the 20th, 21st, 22nd. You see, the main trough seems to slide here, kind of just east of the Bering Sea. And that is going to allow for some ridging in this area. Now, if the ridge sets up here or possibly here, I'm going to watch that little cutoff low, to maybe at times be bringing some moisture in under this ridge. But we need to know if this setup, the one that we're expecting to see at the end of, the third week of this month, is it a dry setup or is it a wet setup? It's a complicated one. Let me get rid of those drawings and show it to you again. What is it? You see, I'm trying to get the interplay of this ridge with the models trying to put in some trough around, there's Hawaii, just north and east of Hawaii. Because normally when we see ridging across the west coast, this is a warmer, drier pattern. Okay, remember, we're pretty far out here. This is day 13. Okay, so wind speeds. Is there any correlation between the stronger winds here and what happens along the west coast of the United States? Because this has been the most robust signal that I've seen recently. So I did this. I went out and I looked at the zonal wind speed correlation with the wettest Januaries on record for California only. And it's not there. You see, what we typically get during really wet Januaries is strong zonal flow here, that very well understood and known Pineapple Express. So this tells me that the probability of us going into a wet end of January, the last 2 weeks, if I keep the wind speeds cranked up here, you just saw them right there, right? Well, that doesn't bode well for also keeping them moving really fast over here as well. The historical correlation is not there. Here's the other problem. Normally when we're very wet in California in January, which is what we need to be ridging out here in this area with troughs developing right in through here. And right now we're not seeing that full pattern set up. So I think I'm going to have to tend to agree with some of the longer range models that say, while we may see our temperatures moderating in California and in parts of the Northwest, maybe this drier bias here is a real thing as we stretch this out from the end of January through, much of February as well. Now, I'm going to have to watch several of these things kind of pivot and change and adjust in their positions. But right now, that's the diagnosis that I can give you. So we're going to watch it carefully. We'll keep you updated, and I'll watch this model trend over the weekend to see if it's still there in the forecast I release early next week. So tune back in next week to see if we have any sort of adjustment in this, okay? All right. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again soon. Thank you.